Okay. Let me share my screen. Make sure I have a lot of windows open, so make sure I try to get the right
not
content
that screen.
Here. Yeah, not that screen. Well, there's nothing, I mean,
right.
It's pretty dull stuff, frankly. Okay, I think I got it. So can you see the agenda?
Yes.
Perfect. Great, can you start the recording, please, Cello?
Yes, I did.
Excellent, thank you. Well, welcome everyone. And it's been a while since we've met, although some of us have been meeting, doing some work over the holidays, and I hope you all had a terrific holiday. We're able to make the most of it in this pandemic. I know that for our family, we invested in some Facebook portals, if you're familiar with that. And it's actually been quite nice. It's a really not that I don't make any money if you buy one, but these devices have got some great cameras and great microphones on them. So when we were opening kind of Christmas gifts together, it actually felt like we were almost sort of in the same room. It was actually pretty nice. It's pretty fun. So anyway, so if you're looking for something to connect with family that you haven't been able to, I could definitely recommend that portal device. But however you celebrated, I hope it was a good one. And kind of here getting ready to dig into it and keep the ball rolling on this. We're getting, you know, May, Cello, right, is the end of our, when the reports due?
The final, yes. The draft is due on March 31st. And the final, the project closure is May 31st. So
yeah, so that'll be here before you know it. So let's get fired up and get moving. So introductions. I think we've got typically everyone on the team's been here for a while. So maybe we'll skip over those for now. But again, welcome. We're going to go over the maturity model real quickly. First part of our agenda. Well, actually, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about it. We've done some work over the holidays. A small group of us worked on that. We organized the input that we got at the workshop. We put together some maturity statements. We're going to talk about how that interfaces with workforce development. We're going to walk through some examples, and we're going to try and we'd love to get some input from you, at least some initial input, because you will have additional opportunity. And then we're going to talk about the overall project. Cello's going to help us on that. We're going to do a quick survey, kind of where things are at for you and in your work on the UAM program. And then our schedule, we'll go over the schedule and the work plan update. And then finally, we'll just kind of close up with some next steps. So with that in mind, let me share a different screen. And I'll bring up the input. Is Kesra with us today?
yes.
Excellent. So Kesra, as I'm bringing that up, would you mind talking about how you organized all that great input we got?
Yeah, so yeah, that was a great input. We had I think over 200 statements that we went through, and we basically, what we did was we kind of combined similar statements together so that we could get a handle on what people's minds and thoughts were. So we grouped them together in some sort of categories, and Mark's just brought up the screen. So if you we looked at the results layer, for example, and grouped a number of KPI target type comments together. We took some kind of PI awareness, statements together. A lot of people talked about how do we measure the PIs. So we kind of grouped all the statements in these categories. We went through all over 200 of them, and each layer has its own kind of categories. Some categories do overlap. But so that's how we kind of started off and said, how do we understand what people's input that they gave, what their thoughts were in certain areas. And so that kind of really helped us to sort of look at, focus in and hone in on some of the things that were very, high on people's minds. And then Mark did a great job of taking those statements and then kind of adding level 5 maturity statements that would reflect the input that was received in those categories. And as Mark will say, it doesn't encompass all of them, but we got a sense of what people were trying to say, and that's how the level 5 maturity statements were put together. So that's what we have done so far. We did meet one more time, and we kind of planned out our future steps. Maybe if you want to go to the plan quickly, Mark, so at least we'll give it an idea of where we're going with this, and then you can take over. So we basically, Mark has completed the level 5 maturity statements. I'm going to start looking and addressing over the overlap with the workforce, because there are a lot of statements or items that overlap. So do we keep them in both areas, or do we combine them? So I'm going to kind of start looking at those, and then we'll meet up with the workforce team to figure out what we do with those overlapping inputs that we received. And then Parajit is going to develop sort of level 1 and 3 statements. So level 5 is, that's Shangri-La, that's where we all want to be, but obviously, so based on, so what is level 1 then, and what is level 3? And then we're going to start working on metrics and assessments, and then develop the final change model. So that's our plan. Just wanted to kind of give you that up front, so that as you're looking at these maturity examples, you can at least maybe understand where we're going with it, and would love your feedback on the maturity statements, on how we're doing this, and who'd like to volunteer to join the group. The core group working on this.
We'd be happy to have other folks work with us if you have some time. It's been really helpful, to dig into these things, and it's like I say, there's a lot more, as Keshra mentioned, there's a lot more level 5 maturity statements that could be written from all that input that we got. These were the ones that were suggested to me as I looked at those, each one of those bullet points, those inside of each box, and thought about, well, what would an organization look like if it were really functioning well in this area? For instance, under results, there at the very top in row 2, we talked about KPIs. An organization has KPIs, right? I mean, many organizations actually don't have them. It's kind of surprising, but they're measured. You set goals for them every year, or maybe it's quarterly, and results are openly discussed at leadership meetings. And if you've read Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the results, that's what it's all about, because you've built the trust, you know how to handle conflict, you know how to work together. These things all lead up to this top part where results can be, you can functionally discuss it without people getting defensive, without people placing blame, all those sorts of things. So the idea here, and it's just a short sentence that I tried to express it, but the idea here is that the organization is focused on these things. What results are we producing by the things that we do, by the work of our staff? So that's the idea I tried to capture there. And as Keshra said, these are just, sometimes I tried to capture all the bullets, and other parts it's just too big. There's just too many things to capture in a single statement. But we thought that by doing a number of these, we could at least get an idea of what it would look like if your organization's at that level. A little bit of feedback that we got from some of the other team members who were doing some of this work over the holidays was that, man, these things look like aspirational statements, and they definitely might be. Could any organization be doing all these things? Not likely. And some of them might even be a little mutually exclusive, because I don't know if you remember when you've done the EUM, if you've ever worked on the EUM framework, there are some things in there that you wouldn't do all of them, right? Because they would be in conflict with each other. So there may be some examples here that might be in conflict, but perhaps not as much as with the EUM examples. But again, the idea here is these are things to aspire to if the organization is really wants to work to get better from an organizational culture standpoint. And as Keshra said,
just comment on that too, Mark.
Please.
One of the things that in doing these types of maturity models that I've done, and I think is highly valuable is to encourage organizations to understand where they're at, but where they want to be. Because along those lines, it may be that they don't feel like going to a level 5 on some of these areas provide value, but a level 3 or 4 does. And so I think in the conversations you have on down the road, that's an important concept, is establishing both, status and goal. And exactly that, you have to select the maturity levels that are right for you and your organization and what you're trying to achieve.
Yes, great comment. That's absolutely dead on, because again, there's no organization that could meet all of these things. And so what you need to think, what an organization should do is, well, what things do we need to work on? What things will have the greatest impact right now for us? And if we could achieve level 5 in these areas, that would really move our organization forward. We're at a level 3 in these others. Yeah, we'd like to be better, but that's not where our impact is going to lie. So it's definitely a continuous improvement type of model, at least in my mind. And so it's always something you're working toward, and it can evolve. But great comment, Todd. I absolutely agree. You pick the things you want to work on, and in that way, it's actually, again, very similar to the EUM framework. You pick the things you want to work on and get better at because you think those will have the greatest impact for your organization. Other comments or thoughts? All right, so I thought what we would do next, and this is where you can provide some input in the chat, and we're gonna have this stuff posted, so we would like you to continue to look at it and provide feedback to us. But we thought we'd walk through some examples of these areas, and you can provide feedback in the chat box, which we record, which is really helpful, similar to what we did for the workshop. So let me touch on a couple more here under results. Let's see, let's go down here. So on row 5, shared vision. Now, vision, as Kaysar pointed out to me, shared vision is a big area, right? But here's a statement that was suggested by the input that we got. So staff are engaged in developing and understanding the organization's vision for the future and are inspired to help achieve it. And so I would even add to that they understand their role in achieving that vision. Right? They understand how what they do contributes to that. And that's part of that. They're inspired to help achieve it. So there's a lot of little things that underlie that. So that's one example of how you might work on vision, a maturity level statement for vision. Let's talk about row 6, opportunities. Growth of the individual, the team, and organization are vital components of the organization's strategy. Thus, opportunities for individuals, teams, and the organization are incorporated into development plans. Made that a big all-encompassing statement. Let's hit maybe one more here under results. So in this one, where we talk about reward, understanding that for most, pay is a satisfier, not a motivator. The organization seeks to engage its staff through work filled with purpose, where each person can contribute by bringing their whole self to work every day. I think this might have been my biggest, like, wow, that's quite a goal. If you could do that, right? So again, if you want to put, I don't have my chat window open, but if you have any thoughts or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm going to pause there. Any thoughts or ideas or comments before we move on to the next category?
Hey Mark, sorry, this is Fred. The font is kind of small. Can you repeat the second one again?
Sure. Which under results?
Yes.
Okay.
The one that you read off, the second one that you read off.
Okay, was that shared vision or opportunities?
I think it was opportunities.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So it's growth of the individual team and organization, or individual team and organization are vital components of the organization's strategy. Thus, opportunities for individuals, teams, and the organization are incorporated into development plans. So the idea I was trying to capture here, and this is where it kind of splits off from workforce, is that development and learning of the organization is important, as well as the development of the individuals inside of the organization. So you were creating space for learning and growth for both teams, for all three, individuals, for teams, and for the organization.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Another companion that might be suggested by that, by some of the ideas that were given, was, you know, that some failures or things that didn't go well are opportunities for learning. That's another good one that might be there, or seen as opportunities for learning. All right, let's go on to accountability. Pick up a couple here, row 8. So under roles and responsibility, staff understand their roles and responsibilities for meeting the organization's goals within a leadership system that is not only transparent and supportive, but inspiring. I like that word, inspiring, I guess. I like to use that, throw that around. Again, if we're going to be inspirational, then, you know, if we're going to go, you know, for, you know, what's aspirational, I thought that might be a good opportunity to do that. But understanding your roles and responsibility in an organization and the team's roles is vitally important. Okay, let's go on to, how about performance measurement, which is row 10 there under accountability. Understanding that learning from mistakes and failure is key to long-term growth of individuals and organizations. Feedback and learning opportunities are seen as a normal part of work, a way of helping the organization and its individual members grow and improve, ultimately leading to a much better organization.
Perhaps I can just add that as we proceed and get kind of, first of all, this is like version 1, so it's not going to be, you know, issued on stone tablets, and the things on the statement would be, we'd really reduce the number of those sort of issues and concerns like Kesra and Mark have been doing, from like 200 to much smaller number. But then as we look at the input, we can make sure that the assessment methods do include these ideas. For example, develop metrics to measure performance. So there will be, when we look at the assessment methods next, we're going to still keep in mind the more detailed comments that I just wanted to mention.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Mark, can you scroll up just real quick, back up to the one just above that?
Sure.
I think I missed something. Never mind, I read it wrong, so sorry about that. I was thinking about its opportunities piece.
Gotcha. And there's definitely some overlap on some of these too. So they're not, you know, don't think of them as, you know, clean, bright lines between each one of these statements.
Hey, Mark, this is Scott. I was just going to suggest that this isn't the last opportunity that people have to review this. But the idea is to get your feedback so that are these level 5 maturity examples and those expressions that Mark has developed of statements in column D, are those with the descriptors almost in column C of what, you know, the input is that helps support that? Are those reasonable? Are there things missing? Are there things that you don't agree with? Those kind of comments would be really, really useful, because we do need to finalize. We're moving towards finalizing at least level 5, and then we'll need to work on, as Kesra was saying, on level 1 and 3 and the assessment and move on. But the hope is that this team can give some you know, good feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And really today, the idea here is really just to introduce it. We would love to get for you to spend a little bit more time with it and to give us some more thoughtful input. So really what I'm trying to do today is just, what we're trying to achieve is just do this introduction. So.
And I think that if the more, I'm sorry, Mark.
No.
If we can get the input on this level 5 maturity, it'll help us better develop the 1 and 3
Mhm.
statements. So that's why we really need your feedback on these level 5 and say, yep, these look good, or can you add something in here, or don't
Yeah.
like this at all, because we're going to start off with the level 5 and say, well, now what does level 3 look like and what level 1 looks like. So if you don't have the level 5 the way we want it, it's going to be, and then we're going to keep going back and forth trying to change 1 and 3. So your input on these level 5s at this point is really important to us.
Yeah, and feel free to write a new statement, an additional statement that for that area. So, and it can merge a couple of the areas. So feel free to be creative and to write some statements of your own that you think that perhaps it's an area we missed, right? Because this is just a way of organizing things. So.
And then you could, on the very right, put your name up at the top and then just add your comments and your suggestions right in the document. That way we can, so maybe to the right where we've got Mark's notes, Parijat notes, maybe put your name up there in your notes, and under each one add in whatever your thoughts are, or if you have additional statements. And so, and then Mark, maybe we can add a link in the chat window for where this is located at, in case. Or
Yes, I will email I've been thinking about that, Keisha. I have to just make sure, because we have 2 spaces. We have space where the core group was working and where everybody else is going to work. So I just have to align that. So I will send an email to all the participants on the call, this group, with the links to consolidate, everything to the single file.
Sounds good. So I'll just give one more example under accountability. An embedded culture of accountability, its responsibility and accountability are clearly demonstrated throughout the organization, from the governing body to the CEO, the leadership team, managers, supervisors, and staff. It flows up as much as it flows down, with each holding the others accountable. Okay, let's move on to control and decision making. This is, what is it, column 15. So the organization has clearly defined decision-making model and uses it appropriately to make the best decisions from the available knowledge throughout the organization in a timely way that produces needed buy-in. How's that for an all-encompassing statement on decision-making? There were so many great comments in this. It was like, okay, I have to add this, I have to add this, I have to add this, and pretty soon it got to be this statement. But there's so much good stuff in there in terms of how do we make decisions. Matter of fact, somebody I worked with the other day was asking about how they work with their team. They're a supervisor for a group, and they were asking how do they work with their team. I said, well, one of the things you got to figure out is how are you going to make that decision? Who gets to have input? Who's going to ultimately make the decision? How are you going to achieve buy-in? And all those things. And so I think one of the things organizations, in my experience, are not necessarily good at, and that's defining how they're going to make decisions. What's their decision-making model they're using? And at any one point in time for significant decisions, how is that decision going to be made? Things like, is this a leader-made decision with input from the team, right? Is it a consensus? Is it, how are you going to make those decisions? And so, and then most important, probably as importantly, is you got to make sure people have good information. You can't make good decisions without good information, right? So that's the other thing I tried to incorporate into that statement.
I think, Mark, one of the things in decision making, I worked for 23 plus years in the oil and gas industry in the private sector, and then came to the water sector, the big, in the public realm. And I found there's a big difference in how decisions are made in the 2 types of organizations. So in the private sector, they're real quick, time is money. And so and a lot of times bad decisions get made because they're quick decisions and everything isn't sought out. And then whereas I found in the public sector is decisions are very slow, but people are afraid to make decisions. Even at the very high executive level, they don't want to make a decision. So it's almost like consensus building rather than decision making concept. It's like, okay, if you have an issue with this, let us know. Otherwise, we're moving on, as opposed to can you make a decision, because nobody wants to make the decision, and it doesn't level with on a lot of things. So that I found was really interesting, how the culture is so different in the two areas. And so one of the things I strive for is if I can get the people to make a decision at the ground level as a group, get the consensus, not a decision, and say, hey, yeah, we like this new process, or we like this new thing we're doing, and then take it to senior management and say, hey, guess what, guys? Everybody worked together and we came up with this and we all like it. Let us know if you don't like it or if there have issues. And now you find a lot more people are willing to talk about it and say, yeah, let's try it. Let's call it a draft final, because nobody wants to call it a final. But, I'm just kind of throwing that out there as the vast difference in decision making in different organizations. I don't know, how it is in your organization, but that's what I found the difference between.
I think generally public sector could benefit from a little bit more speed and a little bit more clarity on how the decisions are going to be made, right? I think that sometimes we don't even talk about the models for decision making, right? Leader led, consensus, when to use what and when to use those, which type of decision at the right time, right? So yeah, it's something that I think that good organizations do, is they have clear decision making processes.
Right. Zanetta seems to have a problem hearing. Is anybody else having any issues? For me, it's pretty clear.
It's pretty clear here. Maybe Zanetta wants to leave and come back in.
I was just going to text Zanetta and ask and try to provide support.
You should be working for Microsoft by now, Cello.
I don't think he'd want to do that, Mark.
No, Microsoft will think keep your enemies closer.
Yeah. They don't want to have clients. They want to have hostages.
They've achieved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about an example under values for a minute here. So there was a lot of great input. This one I had a little bit more difficult time trying to come up with the level 5 maturity examples, but I put some in here, and I would again love for folks to look at them, edit, suggest edits, come up with your own, and that'd be great. But let's talk under value propositions. And again, these are broad categories. All voices are heard and incorporated into discussion and decisions. Differences are welcomed and employed to increase the value of the discussion and the outcomes, as well as the vehicle for strengthening the critical thinking of the team and the individual. Right? So to me, what's related to this one and what I was trying to get to here is I was for a short time, for 1 quarter, I was a teaching assistant when I was in graduate school. I thought I knew the subject, right? This was the intro level to environmental engineering for the civil engineers, undergraduate civil engineers. Yeah, you think you know a subject, try and explain it to somebody else, right? And that's when this idea of, and then when they challenge you, that's this idea of, to help your critical thinking, right? I hadn't thought about it that way. How else might I explain this? How can we improve things, right? So it's that idea of critique makes us stronger. It doesn't make us weaker. And again, organizations, and we're going to get to trust as the last level. Organizations with high level of trust can do that. Yeah, and some of the trust ones weren't always as easy either. So let's go under row 26 here, under assessment of trust. Assessment, measurement of trust in and throughout the organization is done regularly and an important part of organizational development. There's another coming back. All right, maybe one more example. Do we have any, is there another category below? Nope. Let's do one more example under trust, and then hopefully this will give you a nice sense of where we're trying to go with this. So under in trust, under goals and expectations, transparency and vulnerability are key behaviors and are demonstrated at all levels in the organization and modeled by its leaders. So that this is the idea. Is it this transparency and vulnerability, particularly in leaders, and because they show that they're human, right? And that's one of the things that creates trust, right? So that if I, as a leader, if I can show that I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, I openly admit them, then that I model a behavior that creates trust, right? I'm exposing myself to criticism. And then the funny part about this was, you know, as I was coming up as a supervisor, and I would hear people that say, oh, you don't want to tell anybody you made a mistake, you don't want to tell your staff. It's like, made a mistake. They're waiting to see if I'm willing to admit it. Well, I made a mistake. And what they're looking for in their leader is for them to acknowledge it. It's kind of funny. I was surprised at how many people I encountered along the way that thought their staff didn't realize that they made a mistake. It's like they already know you made a mistake. You can either deny it or you can admit it. So you're not telling them something they don't already know. They're just looking to see, do you have integrity in that moment, right? And that's part of how you build trust. I'm not perfect at it. That's what I'll tell you right now. I've made my share of mistakes. Well, I'm going to stop here, and I think that's hopefully that was a good sampling for you to get you excited about going in and looking at these and giving us some feedback. Because as I talk about these, I love to talk about this kind of stuff because this is how organizations turn, right? This is the stuff that makes a great organization. Yeah. It really is, right? I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'm super excited about it, but I hope you all can take a little time and look at these. But, oh, good question, Mert. Timeline for feedback. We're meeting in 2 weeks. Would 2 weeks, I think that can work in our time frame, can't it, Cello and Kesra?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2 weeks? Excellent. All right, let's go back to the agenda. And pull up, where'd it go? It's hiding. Great. Oh, we're at the overall project update. So Cello, is this a good time to do a quick survey to get some feedback?
Yes. Yes, I will put the website and the code okay, let me just type it in. Okay, so you'll go to this website, www.menti.com, and the code is 162038, no spaces. And when you get to that site, and when you're able to enter, you will see the first question. We're just trying to get a sense for where people are in their organizations when it comes to organizational culture. And there will be 6 statements, and you'll be able to say between strongly disagree and strongly agree. Let me know if somebody has unable to get in? Has somebody been able to get in?
Yes, I was able to get in.
Okay,
Yep.
so do you see the first question, set of 6 questions?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, so just, it'll allow you to provide answers between 1 and 5. And I will, give me just 1 second, please. And you'll be able to live watch can you see I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can see it on the screen. You could.
You were able to see it? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So give me just a second. Why is it that I don't see it? I'm not sure what's going on. Give me just a second, please. I will. You can. Oh, okay. There it is. I'll show you. So is it there or no?
Not yet.
Okay. I love Microsoft.
I think you're in the world of Apple now, Cello.
Yeah, well, that's my problem. One of my problems, I should say. One of my problems, I'm getting the results, and
They're just not on the screen yet.
okay, let me just see if this works. Does this work?
Yep.
There it is.
Okay, so this will give us a sense in a quick survey like this. How do you feel about the organizational culture, whether its importance is recognized, whether there are sort of standard methods in place for assessing organizational culture that have been adopted, that the methods for improving are in place, and whether the organization has well-documented case studies and examples, whether organizational culture is periodically assessed, and whether there are metrics. So I think that this slide is really important because what it conveys is we have some really, in my opinion, really excellent organizations working, getting engaged on this project. And we can see that there is a bit of room for improvement. And we can also see that it's not unimportant, that is an important issue, and it's starting to be recognized. So I think the fact that we're struggling a little bit with developing the maturity models is because there's not an easy template that we can use. And once we have these maturity models and assessment methods in place, and when we produce guidelines for improvement, I think it'll be quite valuable for not just utilities participating here, but for others, and that those types of deliverables would broaden the appeal of this project. So,
Cello?
Yes.
Maybe I'm stupid, but this is the first time I noticed this in the Menti app, that there is a distribution for each one of those.
That is correct.
So, yeah, and what's interesting, and I don't know why I didn't pick up on that before, but looks like metrics is pretty skewed, which is not surprising. But that's a nice feature of the app to see that.
Yes, and they also provide output. This is output in PDF format. They provide output in Excel format, which I haven't used yet. Because our questions are not yet at the point where you would want to do some statistics or things like that, but just get a general sense. So if this is okay. So
to me, that what this says, Cello, is that what's really great to hear is the top one. The importance of organizational culture is recognized.
Right.
And I think that's what's brought us all together is, so now what?
Yes.
So, okay, so what, how do we do it to improve it, to develop the culture we want? So that's what that result said to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. I kind of saw that too. It's like there's an awareness
Yep,
that we need to address our culture, but it's almost like either we don't know how to, or we don't have the time to, or,
right. Right, exactly. And it's not an easy thing to do. I think I mean, if it was easy to do, we wouldn't even be here.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, so we're also trying to calibrate, and I understand that some of you may have more than one goal. The reason that I didn't, that I set it up so people can just select the highest priority is because my sense is that if we didn't do that, we might get, people saying,
Everything's
well,
important.
all of these are important for me, but to just get a sense for what are the key driving forces, we thought, okay, what is the highest, driving factor that will help us in.
Joe, what you might want to do if Mentimeter offers it, maybe we could do like a ranking thing on something like this next time.
Sure.
Where you would rank like what's your most important reason, what's your second most important reason,
Yes.
third.
Yes, I can certainly do that next time. Good idea.
Just a thought.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have a question or
Sure.
a comment.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It would be interesting to see on how, what mechanisms that, or how is it recognized? Like for us in our organization, as far as organizational culture, we try to tackle it through our strategic business plan, our critical success factors. So we kind of identify it there. But I would still bet if I asked this question like to 10 employees, they wouldn't connect the dots there. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense, and I will add that dimension because I think that the question that we asked here was a little bit more generic, but I think that there's also a valid question of where is the awareness?
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's what you're bringing up.
Yes, sir.
I think that's that's an excellent point, and I will note it in the next workshop. And the next time we do this, I'm going to include this concern.
Oh, thank you.
So it seems like we have things in place here. So I'm gonna.
I don't know if it's interesting to note, Cello, that both in change management and in organizational culture, majority of the people wanted to improve existing practices in their organization. So that.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it actually, especially because this project is really sort of for utilities, by utilities, and the feedback helps us make sure that we're lined up with the more practical reasons, that we do research that has sort of a generic value, but that each person from a different utility can go back to their, executive level or board or whoever and say, well, this is how we can get some tangible value, so that we strike a good balance between being solid on the sort of academic and theoretical level and also being useful in the short run so that the effort can be sustained more easily. So I appreciate everybody's input. I will be, Mark, I'll send you the PDF file and we can post it and stuff like that.
Sounds good. And Cello, would you please take us through the schedule and work update?
Yes. I will, give me just 1 second, please. I will just
it's
quickly.
it's a hazard of living in sunny Southern California there, Cello.
There's like half an hour, 40 minutes every day when I get this, direct sunshine and with losing hair, it became like everything is illuminated, everything is reflected.
I think we need to start a GoFundMe account for you there. Get some curtains.
Yeah, I know. I seriously like the home improvement department, and it has been noted to me before. So essentially, these maturity models are really the first step in our improvement methodology, and we have established them in the past years for processes. We're working now on the people issues, the 3 that have been identified, and change management, which is actually making improvements, will have to use the information about maturity and analysis of the system, state. So the stuff that we do here also has to translate into tangible changes. And if we look at the context for us making changes, this is the framework that we have discussed. And we can see that organizational culture and governance has to be part of learning. We have to consider that. And then, so that we make adjustments to, that impact the workforce, the processes and technology, that we're also in sync with the organizational culture and our roles there. So when it comes to deliverables, it is the maturity models for workforce and organizational culture, the model and the method for change management. We will not have a maturity model done for change management because it is a process. We have a maturity model for processes already. Then so the next step will be to select and recommend selected and recommended methods, the deliverable for assessment of workforce, organization, and change management practices and methods. Also produce guidance for assessment and improvement. And then finally to have case studies. This is a tall order. We will not complete all this before May, but these are the steps that we're trying to achieve, and we will continue them with the WEF WISE initiative, which will be a continuation of this project when it moves from WEF to WRF. So this is these are the periods of the project that we have right now, and the green is the stuff that we've already done. On the top are deliverables, then the types of workshops which have all been impacted from our original plan because of COVID, and we didn't know, when. So we've been making adjustments. So the stuff that we're going to be working on, this one between 3 and 4 in period 3 is to review and select change management methods, define the assessment methods for organization and workforce, select defined change management methods. So all these 3 things are tightly interacted, and at the, through the workshop is everything at the top. It's that we have assessment methods, guidance documents, and hopefully implementation plans for case studies. And then by the end of May, we would publish the final report. I realize that this is a little bit too much to take. I don't want to spend too much time, but this will be in the video. I will provide and post this presentation to the OneDrive, so it's accessible to everybody and in Teams or OneDrive. But just to give you a general sense. So the project team, Scott and I and Mike Barnett, will work with the leadership of the utility leads who are working on all the initiatives from risk and asset management plans and business case evaluation and CIP, and then the people side workforce and organizational culture and change management to make sure that all the efforts are in sync. So we're going to work closely with the utility leads. So there's not going to be a test on this, but just to give you a quick sort of overview, because I know we're getting close to the time to wrap up. And I want to see if there are any questions.
Yeah, I raised my hand, Cello. This is Scott.
Okay.
I think that one thing that you have said in some other sessions is that this is like 1.0 version.
Yes, yes.
And that there's opportunity to improve it later because it is ambitious. Looking at the survey, Mark, it looked like people were saying that this is important and that they also were interested in, you know, any case examples or artifacts or even short presentations on how organizational culture initiatives are being employed. They wanted to learn from peers, and which is encouraging. So depending on the time, you know, that we have, it may be good if anybody wants to volunteer, you know, kind of a, you know, a story that you have in your organization in terms of how you're dealing with organizational culture, you know, just throwing that out there. You know, we can't spend the rest of our 3 months, you know, doing all that because we have to deal with the deliverables, get feedback, et cetera, on that night, you know, consistent with that graphic that Cello showed. But I think that people are wanting to share with each other. So just throwing that out there.
Well, we should make time for that in an upcoming meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd love to have people do that. So share some of their experiences, some of the, you know, some of their successes and some of the failures. That'd be great.
What are their big challenges, like, you know, that people are having in dealing with organizational culture, and it kind of ties into change and overlaps with the other groups a little bit, but you know, it's one thing to have a theoretical model, it's another to apply it and actually make improvements. So
that's right. Yeah, very good. All right, so may I modify my deadline for having comments? Because what I was thinking about is, like, if folks could get their comments in a week from tomorrow, and then I would have some time on, Kesra and I and Parjat would have some time on the weekend to incorporate those comments, and then we could share them back 2 weeks from today. And I don't know about the rest of you, I get most of my UAIM stuff done on a weekend. So if folks are okay with a week from tomorrow, if you could get them in, you know, or great, or Saturday morning or something, you know, then usually Sunday afternoon is the time I sit down and kind of get stuff ready, kind of try to get stuff around for the week. And so, great. So please, if you would, your comments and thoughts and adds and edits by what's tomorrow, the 15th, so the 22nd, a week from tomorrow.
And
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And then maybe when you send the links out, Cello, if you can kind of put that date in there.
Yes, I will. I will.
And they think they have 2 weeks, so make sure.
And anything else for today from anyone in the group?
Okay, I will then stop the recording.